So Z, thank you for committing this time and to do this first episode with me for my podcast. I still haven't, by the way, decided. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here, man. How's it going? How you
Good, good,
doing, man?
good. Good. I'm doing good, man.
It's funny. I know how you still call me Z, even though my name is Zeeshan. You've never called me Zeeshan, by the way. You have other names for me, but Z is, I guess, we'll go with that for now.
So here's the thing, right? Like your name is Zeeshan Khan. It takes, dude, like ample amount of time to even
Hey,
pronounce.
man, you don't have to call me by my last name. It's kind of weird. It's call me Z. Fine. I'm just go with Z. Fine.
Like if you like imagine there's an emergency, right? So let's play this out. So we're driving somewhere and there's a robbery happening, right? And
I'm
I'm
not driving.
yeah.
So we'll get into why not.
Let me call Zeeshan. By the time I call your full name, man, they're probably gonna be on their next bus robbing, you know.
I
So,
see. Okay. I didn't know you knew the cop's name and stuff, and you called 911. You're like, can I get Officer Zeeshan to come help me out?
oh man, I think you know what's sad? I have a nickname. It's actually like nobody
No,
calls me by that. It's actually called
let's
Sunny.
not. Yeah, let's not. Yeah.
No. I have a nickname. It's Sunny. It's called
Oh,
Sunny.
your nickname. I thought you meant my nickname that you
No,
have
I'm
for
not.
me.
No, we're not gonna go there. But
Okay, fine, fine.
but
Sunny,
I
man.
have a so my dad's nickname is Sunny in the family, and I was supposed to be Sunny Junior. And I think
Sunny
I was like,
Junior.
you know, like one of those sequel movies, they come out and they're not that successful, and they're like, fuck it, let's not make a movie out of it.
I'll call you Junior from now on.
Yeah, well, it was Sunny
Imran.
Junior, and nobody calls me by that name, and everybody's like Imran, and I'm like, fuck.
It didn't stick. It's like
Yeah, it didn't really stick. I don't know why. Though I never use that. I actually prefer when I order my coffee with my last name. Is
Shake.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
conversation starter for some reason. I don't know. Have you realized that or no?
Yeah, I have. I know you always say like shake. It's like for some reason you're like, oh, I'm from the Middle East or something. Like, no, you're not. But
No, I'm not from Middle East, but I think when I say shake, it's just a conversation starter. You know, people making it fun, but
like, what are you shaking?
yeah. And as a when I was like in my late teens, I actually thought that there could be a good, magazine cover if or when I get a chance to be on. It could be called Movers and Shakers,
Hmm.
But and that no,
Shakers.
it
Okay.
didn't happen yet, and hopefully it's not Forbes magazine because when you go there, you go all the way down. With these,
Okay. We'll
you
just
know.
go with sure.
Okay, but yeah, like I think let's give some context to people, right? Like
Sure.
if they're listening to it right now, they probably know like what are you going to be talking about. And in this case, like we have guests here today, Zeeshan Khan.
Hmm.
I would like to introduce him, but I want to leave it up to him how he can introduce himself because today's conversation is all about. How would you summarize this, Zeeshan? I'll put it up here, and
Um,
you can see. By the way, I'm calling by your full name. FYI.
yeah, you can just call me Z. It's
Okay.
fine. It's easier. So I was thinking, because I mean, obviously we've been friends for a while and you know each other pretty well. So, uh, sure, we'll just let this flow. So what I was thinking was, product accessibility,
Mhm.
and then the conversation around it, the story behind it, and what that means to me. And yeah, we'll just go from there, and we'll sort of address different things, not from a typical standard industry sort of point of view,
Yeah.
which what I've heard in different podcasts, like oh, people talk about like oh yeah, what does it mean to be a product manager? What does it mean to accessibility? All those sort of things, right? So, as a user of accessibility, and I'll get into what accessibility actually means shortly. So yeah, we'll just go from there.
Yeah, and do you want to like also introduce like tell people a little bit? So let me just cut myself off and let's start from the beginning, right? Like,
Sure.
um, let's tell our listeners right now you can't you can't see, right? Is that fair? Like,
Yeah, I can't see. Yeah, for the most part, I can't see. Yeah, so I would be what's called low vision, and I'm a user of accessibility, meaning that because I cannot see for example, I'm on on my iPhone right now, so I'm not able to see. So there's a software in there known as VoiceOver, which is basically text to speech. So as I touch each part on my iPhone screen, it'll read to me what it is, and it'll give me commands as to how to interact with that particular element on the screen. So if let's say clock, right? If I touch it, it'll tell me the time. If I double click on it, then it'll allow me to set the alarm, other functionality that's within it. So that's basically accessibility in a nutshell. It's how different people with different disabilities, how they interact with their technology around them, and not just technology, but different other things. Physical accessibility is also another thing as well. So if you've seen a wheelchair ramp, that's considered accessibility. If you've seen sometimes those sliding doors, that's accessibility as well. And that not just affects or impacts, people that have disabilities, but also it can benefit others as well who don't have disabilities, and they can just sort of benefit from the just the fact that it's there.
So can you also like talk about your background? Like let's backtrack a little bit, right? So now people, as you guys know, what Zeeshan was talking about is accessibility. I'm not gonna repeat it again, but I think I want to really talk about your journey, right? It's not like, how to put this. It's challenging situation to be in, and you could see before. Now you can't. Can
Yes.
you talk a little bit more about, I think, your child,
Yeah.
and then let's, how did you lose over a period of time, your sight, how did it start challenging you, and then, the whole tech space of, let's start from there.
Okay. Okay. So my childhood. So my childhood starts in the 1800s. No, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not that old. But um, so I grew up in Pakistan. I grew up in a city called Karachi. It's the largest city in Pakistan. So I grew up playing what's called cricket. A lot of people are not familiar with what cricket is. It's similar to baseball, but it's a British sport. But nonetheless, there's bats. There's we play with like a tennis ball or whatever. So the first time, I guess my parents noticed that, okay, hey, he's not able to locate the ball that he was playing with as a kid, and so they're like, "Oh, we need to take him to the eye doctor." So they took me to the eye doctor. I think I was like 3 or 4 at that time, and the doctor's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, just give him some regular glasses, and he should be fine." So I wore those glasses, and 3-year-old wearing these big glasses. I have a picture of some reason I have like Elvis haircut or something in there, and I have these glasses that I'm wearing. I mean, I'll show you that picture off camera someday. But anyways, but yeah, so basically, just grew up like that, and just sort of seeing like, okay, I did have a challenge at nighttime, just seeing clearly and just not being able to gauge things and judge things. Like, oh, hey, there's a step coming up, I might like miss that step or something. I might not know how low that step goes. You know what I mean? So that was sort of my early exposure, and I didn't know what it was. I was like, okay, just my eyesight is bad. Like I have to wear my glasses, and if I don't wear my glasses, I won't be able to see properly. So that continued, and then I would try to play sports, and I would just in cricket, this tennis ball that's coming at you, you have to be able to gauge. It's like if you play baseball, somebody pitches to you, you have to be able to gauge how far it is, how quickly it's coming at you, basically speed, distance, and time, right? I wasn't good at perceiving that, and I didn't understand why. I thought it was just like, oh man, something's wrong with me because of my eyesight. I can't really see, whatever, right? So that continued on until I came to America, and I was how old was I? I think I was like 13, 14. And when I came here, went to the eye doctor, I think a year or so later, 2 years later. And the doctor's like, he told my parents that, okay, I'd gone to the optometrist to get new glasses, I guess, because I had these really green, thick frames, which everybody would make fun of me in middle school when I came here. They're like, "Why are your glasses so thick?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Were you called Dexter for some reason? Dexter lab.
No, no, they didn't call me Dexter. It just they just would ask me, and they were like green frames for some reason.
Oh
So
wow.
I don't know what sort of look my parents were trying to go get over me. And keep in mind, I'm in 8th grade, all right? So I'm not like in the 5th grade.
Wow.
I'm in 8th grade wearing these green colored like thick frames, and so I was
So,
like, I've had enough of this. I told my parents, I'm like, we're going to the optometrist.
oh, so you did change it. Was it too late, or was it
I
like,
mean, the glasses got better, and then all the fun making stopped. It sounds like
okay?
fine, I guess.
So
But yeah,
I
go
have
ahead.
a question. So all this time you were, describe your visibility. I think it is challenging for people who may not
You
know,
talking
right?
about in
Like,
my childhood at that time?
Yeah, like let's say when you were in your, eighth or ninth grade, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about like how people can imagine what was their visibility rate? Like, I'm trying to,
So yeah,
you know what I
I get
mean?
what you're saying. Yeah. I'm trying to see how I can put people in my shoes so they can try to see what I would see.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I would eighth grade and ninth grade, it was more along the lines of like, okay, how I could see things. So let's say you're walking down the street or you're walking, sorry, in your high school, go class to class. I remember just bumping into a lot of people a lot, right? And
Mm.
then I didn't know why. I was like, man, I guess I'm not looking properly. And then I would ask my friends, I was like, hey, man, do you like when you have to look to your, when you're walking straight, do you look to your right and left, like when you're walking? And
Mm.
he's like, no, I don't need to. I just, I just know, like I can just see. I was like, okay. And I remember this friend, he would just make fun of me because I would bump into things and people and stuff like that. And one time I was just waiting for him at lunchtime, he was supposed to meet me. So I
Mhm.
remember this other friend came with him and he was like, oh man, he got slapped by some girl because he bumped into her. This is the guy who would make fun of me because I bumped into me.
Wow.
But anyway, so he stopped making fun of me after that. But anyway, so I was like, okay, I didn't know sides. I mean, I could see, I had enough perception where I knew I could see there was things in my sides, like peripheral
Mhm.
area, but not enough to know, like, I have to turn my head literally to, like, okay, that's what it is. And it was like after, when you cross the road, you're supposed to
Yeah.
look both sides. It,
Yep.
it felt like that anytime I was walking, over two places.
Wow.
So I had to look, turn my head left, turn right, just make sure I don't run into anybody and get slapped or something or beat up.
No, no.
So yeah, go
It's
ahead.
challenging. No, I'm just saying like it's just, it becomes challenging, right? Like when you're walking,
Yeah,
like.
exactly. Oh, and then a funny example of this, right? So what happened was one time I was walking I was walking through this grass area in the high school. I used to be in student government at that time. This was like in ninth grade, I think,
Mhm.
ninth or tenth. And then I was just walking, and then I think I had a hard time gauging what clearly, like if there was like some wet mud there. Like I had a hard time gauging that if it was wet or dry. It was just
Interesting.
mud for me. So I still don't know. I mean, it's been such a long time since I've that experience, but I'm like, I wonder how people that are sighted, how they gauge if something is wet or dry, like in the context of like mud, for example, right? Or just some
Mhm.
grass, right? So I didn't gauge that. So I just stepped in it and my shoes got all messy and stuff. And I was like, oh man, I just got these shoes like a few months ago. So I was like, oh man, really got to go to the bathroom. I don't want to be embarrassed and stuff. You're in high school, you're feeling like that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just my second year in the country anyway. So I was just rushing and going. And then I just went to the bathroom, and then I realized I walked into the girls' bathroom.
Wait. Did you end up going in a girl's bathroom?
I went into the girls' bathroom, and then there
Oh,
was some girl there, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed!" I was like, "Oh God, this is more embarrassing than my shoes."
wow. Wow.
I'm like,
I'm
yeah,
like, this could be. It's one of those moments, right? Like you look back and laugh at it, but I think at that moment you were like, shit,
yeah,
like.
pretty embarrassing. It's like, okay, so things like that. So missing, if something is wet, on
Mhm.
the grass, or not being able to read the sign clearly because that hallway was kind of dark a little bit, so I couldn't really read the sign properly if it was women or men's restrooms. So I had specific restrooms in high school that I knew where they were exactly, and they were out in sunlight. So I'd make sure I'd
Mm.
only go to those restrooms to, just to avoid those sort of experiences. Um,
So,
Another idea. Sorry, go ahead. You're gonna say.
yeah, so like when this started happening, so has your site like I know we were talking about, over a period of time. So it seems like what you're telling, and so just for the listeners,
Mhm.
um listening to this podcast, so over a period of time, like can you tell the condition that you have? I think we missed on that, right? What's the
Yeah,
condition you
sure.
have?
So the
Yeah.
eye condition that I have, it's called retinitis pigmentosa. Short, it's called RP for short. Basically, it's an issue with the retina where we have these rods and cone cells that we have that are, uh, I forget which one is responsible for which, but one of them is responsible for night vision, one of them is for daytime vision and color and peripheral and things like that. So those are
Mhm.
the sort of think of it this way, like it's basically like the bridge between your eyes, your actual eyes, like your eyeballs, and between the connection between the brain and the eyeballs, basically. So the light that comes in the way I understood it is like, okay, it doesn't get translated properly. So my eyes are fine, like the front eyeballs and stuff, those are
Mhm,
fine. It's just the
mhm.
light that comes in through that bridge, whatever that channel, it doesn't get translated to the brain properly. So the brain doesn't get the signals, correct signals to like, okay, how am I interpreting this image that's coming through?
And
So
does it sorry, go ahead.
yeah,
No,
no, no, go
and
ahead.
does the condition change over a period of time? Like, I think that's something you
It
shared with
does.
me, right? Like
It does. It does. So what I could see at 15 or 14 is not what I can see now. At that time, I was able to see a lot to be able to, I used to run on the track team in high school. I was a distance runner.
mm,
And so distance runner means like running 1 mile races and 2 mile races, which are really long, put people to
yeah.
sleep that kind of distance. But basically I would, do everything, try to play sports, whatever I could. I would miss details in sports and things. I would, my sight was good enough to be able to move around independently for the most part. And as time
Mm,
went on, my sight digressed into where um, there was a point where I could see maybe like 10 feet ahead of me, somewhat clearly. Then it came a point where it was like 5 feet. Then came a point where it was like a lot of things started became blurry. And that's where I'm at now. It's like I can see, but it's very blurry in front of me. And so I'm not able to look at a computer screen properly. I'm not able to look at my phone screen properly. Even
mm,
when I step outside, things are not clear. Like I'm not able to make out faces, people's. For
mhm.
example, see, like even though we've been friends for a little bit, when I met you some years ago, I remember your face a little bit, but my visual memory is very weak. So I don't. It's gonna sound funny, or however it's gonna
Yeah,
sound to
yeah,
you,
it's
but
fine.
but I don't remember my sister's faces. I just remember them from memory. I haven't seen my sister's faces in I don't know how many years, or my parents' faces in like how many years, or in my wife's face, I've seen it, but like my eyesight has gone like blurry over time, where it's like it just starts like blurring even in my head. Like even like the memory is what sticks in my head. But like as of current date, I don't know what my parents look like properly now.
And I'm just trying to comprehend that, right? Like, I don't want to ask a question. I'm just trying to understand, like, if someone is in your
Yeah,
shoes, is like it's how I think the best way to describe. I'm gonna take this what you're saying, and because this is
yeah.
not a, it's not one of those things. How to put this? I don't have words for it. It's not easy, dude. You know, it's
It, it
it's it,
it's yeah.
it's challenge. It's not even challenge. It's like the last time you saw your family, right? And that's what you have, like
And then
visually.
forget my family. I don't remember my own face properly.
But there you go, right? Like it's.
I have a
To be
memory of my
honest,
face. You know what I mean? I have a memory of my face, what I look like. Okay.
yeah. But that's that, and that was the last. When was it? Like, what's the last? I don't know. I don't want to like. What's the last memory that you remember about your
I mean,
face? Like,
maybe like 2 years ago, maybe
oh,
2 years
okay.
ago, and then maybe before that. I don't remember exactly, but I remember being able to see myself in the because try to look at myself every day in the morning when I'm brushing my teeth. And there was a
Mhm.
time where I could, go in and okay, look at my face. Okay, oh, okay, I get a general idea. Obviously, not details, like not like, oh man, where's my acne or something, or if I have
Yeah.
acne marks or any sort of, where's my facial hair if I need to shave or something, right? Not at that detail, but enough to be like, okay, this is what I look like. Okay, hey. But now,
Mhm.
like when I stand in front of the mirror, I mean, I can see I have a white toothbrush. I'm like, okay, I see the white standing out in the mirror, but I can see my nose. Um, and then I can't really make out the rest of the details of my face.
I remember one time when we were standing. So we just for the audiences and the listeners, basically should know that. So Z and I, we were also housemates, right?
Right.
And we used to live together. And one time remember, right? So we went into that house's backyard, um, and you saw. I'm talking about the one in South San Francisco, the first house,
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah,
And
yeah,
so we were standing, and you were like, "Oh, I see your face."
yeah.
And you told me my face looks very mischievous. I was like, "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" But is that still applicable? Like, can you still like if your wife, your loved ones are standing under the sun, because it has something to do with the lighting, right? That's what you told me back then. I don't want to sound like
At that time, it
off.
did. At that time, it did.
And now that doesn't helps either.
It doesn't really help, no, because my eyesight is deteriorated again, and it just happens. I don't know when this happens. It's different for everybody. This is apparently a rare condition that people get. Some people get it early on. Some people get it later in their age. Some people don't get it. It's just a very rare condition. You know what I mean? It's just like 1 in 1 million, 1 in like 10 million sort of a condition. I don't know the exact numbers, but nonetheless, basically, it's like now if I was to look at people's faces, even in the sun, it's just the sun is just too bright. It's sort of like if you have a lens, let's say you have a lens that's like that you're wearing, maybe like I guess you'd call it contact lens, maybe, or maybe like just regular glasses, right? And if the light is too bright, and let's say in front of it there's like something that's creating like a fog sort of a thing, how when a light flashes on it, that's how distorted it gets, right? So if something is blurry already, if the light flashes on it, it'll make that even blurrier, right? Because it's like bright and like you can't really tell details from that, right? So it feels like that. I'm not giving a car analogy because I don't drive, so
No, no. I think that's where the I don't know if what do you call the self-driving cars that would be beneficial. I think I truly think that's one really good use case, right? Like you are able to enable people to travel. Of course, self-driving cars have to be safe, but I know I'm just trying to lighten up a little bit because what you
yeah,
have
for
is,
sure.
is
I mean, the thing you see, I don't look at this as like light or like sort of like, oh man, it's a depressing or something, right? It's like for me, it's like it's just reality that's just happened and evolved over time for me.
Yeah,
Right?
no, absolutely. And speaking on that end, like we I just mentioned self-driving cars. Let's
Yeah.
shift. So you all throughout your childhood you could see, and then over a period of time you had challenges with your sight, and then it came to a point now you have a cane. Is that the right way to call it?
Yeah, it's a white cane. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You have
that's the right word. Yeah.
right. So you have a white cane, and your visibility has gone lower, but you
Yeah.
use um the how do you put it, like accessibility functionalities and tools within
Right.
the laptop you have, the MacBook, right? So you use it on your
Yeah.
phone. So just want to
Right.
shift the narrative now more,
Sure.
or not narrative, like the conversation basically
I got you.
around product accessibility, right? So
Sure.
how do you go about your day then? Like, how do you work? Because you have a day job, right?
Yes.
You're also running your own company. Let's talk about that
Yes.
a bit later as well, because that
Sure.
is very much connected with the challenges you face in your life and how you're building that
Sure.
company. I'm calling it company because I want you to basically describe what you're doing. I don't want to just
Sure.
give it away.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll get to that later. That's fine.
Yeah, but I really want to talk is how do you work with, I
How
know
do I
MacBook,
work?
yeah, like the MacBooks, the
Yeah,
phone.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So that's for me. It's been really interesting to me because, like, when I was in college, university, I started noticing certain changes in my eyesight where I was like, oh man, I can't see this with computer properly. So I had an HP laptop at that time. It was like a big 17-inch one. Man, so carrying that thing around on campus, that thing was really heavy sometimes, but nonetheless, I would just carry it around and then I would change the background on it to, there's some contrast settings. So I would put it to like a solid black background, and I had yellow text. I had changed the color of the text to yellow or white so I could read it better. And as time went on, there was a software that's known as Zoom Text that would allow me to magnify my screen 1.5 times, 2 times, more than that, whatever I wanted it to be. And some of my classes that I got through at that, do you want me to go back into that a little bit, or do you want me to just sort of stick to like
Sure. I think the more context, the better.
Okay, got it. So at that time, I remember I had taken this economics class. It was called economic development. It was a very interesting class. I got to learn about, all right, how things develop in different countries over time, whatever. But nonetheless, that class had a lot of reading. And I was like, man, how am I going to read this? Because what they would do is they would convert my books into digital format, into PDF formats, and then I could magnify it and then try to read it, right? But even then, looking at my laptop, on PDF, magnifying it and just going line by line, moving my head left and right and all that. It just became too tiring. And I was like, okay, this is not working. And, we were on a quarter system, so 10-week classes. So they had provided me another software called Kurzweil, 3000 or 2000, whatever it was called. Basically, it's named after the guy who came up with this, Ray Kurzweil, the guy from the guy talking about singularity and all that. I think he used to be at Google. I'm not sure if he's still there or not. But anyway, so he came up with this product for blind people, basically allowed them to read text, allowed them to read these texts, and just the software would read it to you. I remember that's what I did. So I had a midterm coming up. I had like 10, 15 chapters to read or something for that midterm. I think I had like 5, 6 days. So each day I would just sit down, go through like each chapter or like a few pages, just have the software read to me at like 200 words per minute or something. And how do I give context of that? 200 words per minute. I think people on average read like maybe half of that, if not less than that, like regular people. And this thing, when it reads to you, it's like reading it really fast. So I would just listen to it, pause it, take some notes, listen to it, pause it, just take some notes. And that's how I got through about like 10, 15 chapters of like economic development course. And I mean, I got an A in that class, so I was like very happy. I was like, oh man, the software came really really in use, you know what I mean? To be able to read it and to be able to get through these different chapters and stuff. So I was like, oh, that was my sort of early exposure to accessibility and how things work within when it comes to like education space and stuff, right? So I did that, and then as time progressed, I wasn't necessarily always an early adopter to technology, so I didn't get the iPhone till 2013, and at that time I think it was an iPhone 5 that I had, iPhone 5. So and in between that time, from like before 2013, I was still using like my HP and stuff, and then I got introduced to like the Mac, the MacBook and stuff. So I had that, and then I was using that, and at that time, like I would just magnify it. The cool thing was within the MacBook, there was a feature, or sort of not a feature, but like a keyboard shortcut that would allow you to sort of magnify your screen however you want it to magnify. So you don't have to rely on the software that you have to purchase separately, which ZoomText was for my HP laptop. So I was excited about this, and I could change the colors, or at that time I could just make it like it was just a black background with like white writing on it. And even at that time, I just started noticing things. I didn't know it was called. I knew it was called accessibility, but I didn't know the technical stuff behind it. Meaning, I still don't, but I have I have a better idea. But at that time, I was like, okay, there's certain problems within here, and I don't know who's working on solving these. And I was like, okay, I was just happy. I was like, oh, great, I can use a laptop that works. I didn't really look into it. I didn't reach out to Apple, see if they can work on it, make it better or whatever. I didn't really do that. But I was just happy. It was like, okay, this works. Because I remember one of the big features that I had an issue with at that time was when I flipped the contrast. So like, you know how right now everybody who's sighted, you look at it like everything is white background, and then things have different colors on the screen, right? And you can see the video in its real colors. What would happen at that time is if I flipped the contrast, made it so like it's a black background, white text, yellow text, whatever, the video would change into colors too. And it was like those back in the days, they had those cameras that had like the film.
Yeah,
it would look like a negative. Basically, you hold it up in like the up the light in the light or something. You could see what it is. That's how the video would start showing up. It was showing up in like negative colors, and it was kind of creepy. Like, oh, you're watching this video. Everyone's looking all creepy in that video. So I was like, okay, this is not working. So that was my early exposure to sort of product accessibility. And then when I got the iPhone, I had to figure out a different way to use it. So that's sort of that background, and then I can go into more details if you want.
No, I think what actually happened, just for the audience and listeners to know. So I was on X, right, and there was this person sharing a video of this lady who was actually using the phone the same way the way you use, right? It's all like dark in there, and she's just tapping on it, and I understand how it works, right? So she was using, and that sparked a conversation, right? And as like some people were like, hey, where can I listen to that podcast? And I told you about this, that we got to do this. faster because there are questions. And I think one thing you and I we have identified that when it comes to product accessibility, is like so just for the people to know, I just want to add more and more context. So I'm a product manager, right? And I've also been a product designer. And I will be really honest, there's everybody focused on great UX, great usability, and some designers out there who really focus on accessibility, right? That's great. But when it comes to the true nature of accessibility, like this is the truest nature of accessibility, right? Like someone like you to use it. And I've seen that they're not that much friendly. Like iPhone you use, can you share talk about that a little bit more? That how do you use it? But also like the challenges, man, like some standard. I remember you used to use this one app or multiple apps, and you've told me multiple times, like, dude, I can't order. It always messes up, or you're transferring some money or something, or ordering grocery. I remember those frustrations, right? And then there were also some services to use. Remember, like you would call them, and then they would say, "Hey, this is sugar, this is salt." Right? Like, let's start from there, man. Like, how do you use your iPhone? Like, because I know this for sure, and if the audience and listeners are listening to this right now, I think one thing is we want to be very clear in what we're talking about, right? Like, it's one of those things that when people have, a lot of people will not have context about it. Like when I met you, Z, I didn't have context. I think I would put myself in like, I didn't even know anything about it, but staying with you, and then over a period of time, our friendship, I understand how you operate, and now for me, it's very, very fundamental, right? Like you have to have accessibility, right? Accessibility doesn't stop in certain ways. Actually, you have to think about it in many ways. So let's talk about how you use the iPhone today. And let's talk about some apps which are really doing some great misses, and how is it disappointing?
Sure. So, as far as the iPhone goes, so when I initially got the iPhone, there was I was like, I tried to zoom, basically make it. There was like a zoom feature in there, so I was like, okay, I can magnify the iPhone, try to read it, try to read things, but the screen is obviously small, so I was like, man, that's just too small for me. That's not going to work. That's inefficient. So I figured out a way to turn on voiceover. I think I turned it on by accident. And then it just screen went blank. I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Who broke my phone? I was like, I just got this phone. I went to the, what's it called? The Apple store. And somebody helped me figure out how to like get it back on or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that was a different story. But anyways, when it came to like, as I started using the iPhone, using voiceover, like I said earlier, was text to speech. So as I touch different things, whatever, it'll read to me what it is, right? And there's certain other features, certain other tricks and things you can do to sort of manipulate that, what it reads to you, whether it's reading the word, the character, whether you can copy something, click on a specific link within a text message, for example. There's different things. So Apple Apple's gone really good over time when it comes to accessibility with all their apps. But one thing that I have noticed with Apple is, as their different software updates come through, sometimes they break things that are already working. And I'm sure these developers are aware of it. There's a big accessibility related Apple community out there that are voicing their opinions about this. Yeah. So that's something that's been that comes up as a concern sometimes. But Apple overall does a pretty good job with accessibility. So some of the apps that I use that I have challenges with, I have to think about it. Initially, I had challenges with the Instacart app because when I started using it, it just would, if I would touch something, and how would I explain this? So if I'm touching a certain portion on the screen, let's say I want to go from ordering an item and I want to be able to add it to my cart. So the way, as a user who's sighted, the way you do it, you just sort of, this how I don't know how you do it as a sighted user, but you want to tell me how, so that I can sort of contrast that with how I would do it.
Sure. So you want me to describe like how?
Yeah, like how Instacart. So like, let's say you're adding a grocery item.
Yeah.
So how would you do it?
So I'll just open the app right now, just so I can make sure I have the latest and greatest update. And so
on Instagram, Instacart coming after you like, hey,
yeah,
price
they're
talk
gonna
is
be
back
like,
about it.
hey,
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to, because FYI, I actually use Instacart. It's pretty good for
Yeah.
someone like me, right? But they
It's
need to
good now
also,
too for me too, but I'm just talking about like the experience how it was now and how things have evolved, right? So
yeah, they have to be accountable for all kind of all types of users, basically. Even for my mom, she doesn't even use Instacart actually. So when I opened Instacart app, right? So there are a bunch of choices on the top
mm-hmm,
tab of for
mm-hmm,
you, grocery, and all that good stuff. And
mm-hmm.
then it has these shopping at the bottom. It's like a column or rows. They have two rows basically, which basically is the name of the grocery store in this case, so
Mm-hmm,
Target, Sprouts, and everything.
mm-hmm,
Then
mm-hmm.
you have a ad below that, and then below that they have these hot deals from Walmart, Molly Stone, everything that's
Sure,
nearby
sure.
you, right? So that's how it works. So if you want to basically go ahead and order, and don't want to do it in Instagram advertisement, but I'll just click Safeway in this case, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just ended up clicking Target. I would go search for the item, add it into the cart. Once I'm done adding it into my cart, then there will be another page which will say, "Hey, do you want to add this? I don't know, some
Other
random
thing,
butter,
whatever. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
other
Okay, got
things,
it.
right?" And I'm
Okay.
like, "Yeah, sure, why not? Because I don't know, I didn't think about it." And so I end up adding it, and then it has just make sure, hey, this is your address, this is your payment. Are you good? How much tip you want to add, and then you just go
Sure, sure.
ahead. That's it. Then you're done. Then it finds it, does a thing, and that's all. So that's how it works today. I of
All
course,
right.
and if by the way, if this is being heard by right now by some Instacart PM, and if I miss some step, it's because we're doing this podcast about accessibility. It's not the goal to talk more about Instacart itself. Just want to make myself in the clear. But over to you,
Yeah.
Z.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, so basically, so that's pretty, that's a pretty for me. It's similar to that. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, I'm ordering something. So let's say I go on there. There's an option at one time. Instacart would allow you to when I would try to go add the item, right? It wouldn't let me. It would say dimmed, meaning like my voiceover would say that item is dimmed. Dimmed
Hmm.
literally means that something is grayed out. That means you can't add it. But
Interesting.
when I would show it to someone else who was sighted, they're like, no, no, this works. And they
Huh.
could click and add it. So to me, it wasn't translating properly to me, even though it was there. Somebody else could see it who was sighted. But for me, that wasn't the case. So
Hmm.
after that, I mean, they fixed it, whatever. That may have happened for a brief time, whatever, but they fixed it. So
Yeah.
I haven't ordered Instacart in a while now. So, but last time when I did, it was like, okay, you can just increase, decrease the quantity, and it lets you do that. So that's pretty good. And then you can just sort of, I can go to different stores, I can go different things like that, to different departments within a store. I can
Yeah.
type into the search whatever I want to. So that's gotten better. Um,
Hmm.
when it comes to other apps that I use, for example, oh God, Gmail. Gmail. I don't want to say it's. Do you want to just talk about the web app, or do you want to talk about the iPhone app also?
Hey, those are challenges that you face. I think it's okay. You can mention it.
So the web app or the whatever the website gmail.com.
Mhm.
I go on there, but man, it's it's really tough to navigate with voiceover for me because there's certain commands that I give to using voiceover. So if I want to go through each email, if I want to read each email, right, like
Yeah.
just the heading of it or whatever. So it jumps around a lot. It doesn't stay in one place. If I press one button, like if I'm trying to navigate using voiceover, it'll jump from what do you guys call it? One element to the other really quickly, one area, one web spot, one
So
heading, whatever.
just in case, are you referring to the tab button that you just keep clicking on or tapping
No,
on?
so I use what's called on my MacBook. I use Control Option and right arrow key.
Oh, control. Oh, let me try that. Okay.
No, no, but the thing is, but you have to turn on voiceover for that. I don't want
Oh.
you to turn it on your laptop. You're going to go crazy listening to it. But anyways, so it describes everything that's on the laptop or
Yeah.
on the screen, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying that. So basically, once I turn it on,
Hmm.
and then I try to navigate using Control Option to the right or whatever. And there's
Yep.
another way to bring up different menus so you can jump around, so you don't have to just do it one element at a time. So that's Control Option U. U for umbrella. So that lets you do that. That brings up, okay, a heading list. That brings up like a form control list, which I don't know what that means. Articles, I don't know what that means either. A table, I know what a table means. So it's listed that way, but I'm like, I guess maybe this is how product managers, how they label things, or how designers label things on a website. I don't know. I'm not technical.
Yeah, like just to give you some more context, so like so what ends up happening is they have this design systems, right? So when you build a
Okay.
design system, they have the same structure that you can make a reusable element or component, right? And
Okay.
so what ends up happening, it's leveraging a bunch of other, defined elements, putting it together, and so you have, oh, this is how a table looks like. Oh, this is a row, how it looks like in a table. There are many ways people go about it. There is a standard structure, but I'm just, for the people who are listening, there are certain, design system elements that someone like Google, they have a vast, right? So if you think about Google,
Right.
they have something they use across. I don't even know. Maybe a PM at Google knows, but I'm 100% sure they have a certainly a primary design system that's across everything, and then they probably have something for vertical, like apps verticals, what they have, like. But there is a system behind that. Possibly what you're hearing when they're calling it out is probably the name of the component.
Possibly.
I don't know. I've never heard that, but I'm just
So that's one thing, and for me that started showing up more because I'm using the voiceover now more, even on my MacBook. Before I was just magnifying, and I didn't have to really rely on using a screen reader to see my screen basically. So that's one thing another challenge that I come across. Other things, let me see. Uber is really good. I use Uber every now and then. So Uber's been pretty good about accessibility and being able to just navigate there's app over time. It's gotten better, of course. All these apps have evolved over time.
so,
I remember one time. Go ahead.
but do you think, like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut, but I just want to ask you, like, you got to name at least 3 apps that you think are really doing a good job in accessibility.
Okay, I think Google, Apple
You
is
just
doing a
said,
great job.
but you just
No,
said
but
like the Gmail.
there's certain apps within Google that are really good. For example, um, I like Google Maps. See, but the
Yeah,
thing is, I was talking about Gmail, the web app,
web app. Okay,
the
so
web app, right?
okay,
So,
got it.
right. So on my iPhone, Gmail app is really good. My iPhone. Google Maps. Apple. Let's see. Apple. I mean, I use Apple, whatever apps they have. So whatever's built in,
I think
that's pretty
overall,
good.
like overall, I've never seen you struggle, or at least face that much challenge with
See, the
Apple.
challenge that I ran into was like, so these big companies, right? So they're
Yeah,
good because obviously a lot of people, they're in the limelight. They're public companies,
yeah.
and a lot of users are they're part of their daily lives. Basically, these companies, right? Whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Apple, Google,
Facebook.
Facebook, I don't use much, so that's why I don't talk about Facebook.
Wait, so you're not on any of Meta's products like
I
Instagram,
use
Facebook,
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp? Okay.
I don't like Instagram. I don't like. I'm not a big fan of social media, to be honest. So that's a different conversation altogether. But
Okay,
when
so
I was using Facebook, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
What I was going to say was when I was using Facebook, I could use it the same way like any other app. Like I would just magnify it, and accessibility wise, they're pretty good. They're what Facebook does. What's interesting is from what I remember many years ago is they could describe the image to you. Like if there's an image, it'll start doing that, which is really cool. I don't know how they do that. But for me, Facebook didn't really serve too much value. So I just sort of didn't go on it. Instagram, I've sort of used it for like a week or something, but it was just like, it wasn't. And see, I'm talking about like 4 or 5 years ago.
It's
You know
fine.
what
It's fine. Like, hey, it's fine. You don't use social media. It's fine.
I mean?
But I think,
Yeah. So WhatsApp is decent. You know what I mean? But nowadays, WhatsApp is starting to really give trouble when it comes to voiceover. It's like it gets stuck a lot now. And I don't know what they're doing with WhatsApp a lot nowadays. It just gets stuck a lot. And it's like, I have the latest update on iOS. I don't know what's going on with it.
And you have the latest phone as well, or?
I do. I mean,
iPhone 5.
it's just like, no. That
This-
iPhone 5 I had, and then I switched over to an iPhone 7. Now I have an iPhone, I think it's a 12 or a 13, I think so.
yeah, pretty good. The
Yeah.
newer versions are not that good either. But one of the things that it's interesting you mentioned, image recognition. I think that is
Mhm.
something great. I really like that. I think there's a great use of that. I don't know which apps are using that.
Mhm.
Possibly if you use Facebook, then it can show, right? Like, this is your friend. He seems to be smiling. He's standing in a now, even with the open AI and all that good stuff that's happening with this, right? I think they can
Mhm.
step ahead. They're not describing a photo to, well, maybe, I don't know.
I think, see, accessibility and AI. See, I haven't explored that area of AI yet. I mean, I don't know much about AI, to be honest, in that sense when it comes to accessibility.
Mhm.
So, to that could be really interesting if the AI could start describing things in accessibility, like describing images. Start basically, the idea is to give more context, right? Because when
Yeah.
you're a user on a website or an app, you're just
Mhm.
looking for context and things that are intuitive, right? That you can understand and sort of navigate through the website easily to get done whatever needs to be done. That task, right?
Mhm. No, and that's correct. And I think one thing I'm thinking of right now is when you look at like these apps, right? Like who are doing well. Like you mentioned the challenge you had with, the grocery app, or you had a challenge with the Gmail web app, right? Do
Yeah.
you think, because I'm, again, this is my hypothesis, or not even a hypothesis, just a best guess. Do you think it's a really great miss, overlooked when it comes to product accessibilities?
See, when it comes to day-to-day use sort of apps, right, that make life
Yeah.
easier for somebody who has a visual condition. From that point of view, yes, there's a lot of improvement that's happened over the years. Because when I was the way I got into this was because I noticed that there was this big gap, and I was working on a software testing startup at that time, focused on accessibility specifically. We were basically working with different companies to help them provide sort of like feedback on their app or their web app or whatever it was, to make
Hmm.
it better and easily usable for a lot of people. So at that time I noticed things were like still in the early stages or whatever. Not, I don't want to say early stage, because there's a lot of pioneers in this accessibility space that have done really great work. So
Hmm.
so they were working on it, and things got better over time. And but now I think we're in a phase now that I think we have to go beyond the fact that, okay, there's disabled people, or at least I can just speak for blind people for myself, that are using products, day-to-day use products, right, that are transactional in nature, that are, if you want to order an app, order some food, okay, fine, good. Okay, if you want to order some books on Amazon, or if you want to order my bad, why am I saying books? Blind person, you're not going to read a book, sorry. So if you're ordering anything on Amazon, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I heard you.
Okay,
And
okay, got it. So basically, any sort of transactional day to day sort of use, right? That's fine.
yeah.
That's good. You want to watch a video, that's fine. But I think when it comes to going to the next level, when it comes to a blind person being able to look at data, if you want to be a product manager, for example, right?
So yeah, that's yeah, because I'm really curious, right? Like for me, the products I've worked on, um, yeah, like can't like actually I don't have much experience in this space.
Hmm.
This in my opinion, I feel it's again like I've worked in gaming company, right? I've worked in data space and
Hmm.
all the SaaS, and I've done a startup myself with my own startup as well. This is something overlooked. At
Hmm.
least this is again my opinion, my observation.
Right.
Um, it depends, my observation could be, a bit too less compared to other folks who are in this space. But I do feel like people who have challenges and would have like visually impaired, right? I
Hmm.
think I believe there should be a space now that this should be a standard. Right? If you're building an app, you're building a mobile application, web application, you know, you should be able to have, what do I say, like a standard core that, hey, you don't ship an app without, good system in place for people who are visually
Yeah,
impaired,
yeah. I mean, there is a lot of good standards out there. What's called WCAG 2.0, or I think they may have the next iteration. I don't know, but basically, web content accessibility guidelines. They have that sort of serves as a framework for people. And there's a lot of good organizations doing work along these lines. DEEQ, I think it's called DEQUE. I think they're based out of Australia. DEEQ is a great organization that works on accessibility and education, and they also work with developers and others, I think, as well. I don't have any affiliations with them. I just, I was trying to learn accessibility from their platform, so that's how I know about them. Another, I would say, like I said, I think they are doing that. A lot of companies are doing that, where it's like, okay, let's make day-to-day living easier for folks with visual impairments. Okay,
Yeah.
there are companies that are doing that. What I'm saying is, I think that needs to go to the next level, in the sense that, hey, because I'll give you my example. So when I wanted to become a product manager. So I went to a product management training school, and I was there. I would just show up to the classroom, and other people that were sighted that were there, and I would go through the course. But for me, like, I went through the course. I mean, it seemed like it's valuable information. And again, I'm not going to comment on like how good these sort of programs are for people to get jobs or whatever. But nonetheless, I got the certificate like everybody else, because I was like, oh, this seems interesting. How can I help build the product? Because I like products. At that time, I had worked on many years ago. I'd worked on like an education app for kids. I did that about 2012 or 13. And then after that, I was trying to do the software testing company. So I did the product management course after that. So
Yeah.
so I wanted to be, but when I wanted to go for interviews, I was really hesitant to be a product manager, because I was like, man, how am I going to read the data quickly to be able to look at the analytics that are coming in and to make sense of them, because I can't see the bigger picture like all at once. I can't do that.
Do you think
So
AI, sorry, and I want to ask you, this is actually a very good one. Do you think AI can help you with that? Like, hey, let's play this out. Hey, you have a
sure.
product manager who is visually impaired, right? And he logs into his, Domo card or whatever. Let's just give it a name, right? Like some dashboard, analytical
Sure.
dashboard in their Salesforce or something, right? And
Okay.
a Tableau. I'm just taking all these very same because they are really complicated. Sometimes, the numbers are there, plenty of number, right? When I would look at companies' revenue, they have like at least 100 numbers in there, right? You have to make sense of it. Do you think
Right.
with AI where it's today, specifically, let's talk about ChatGPT, its model, you have Anthropic, all these cool stuff coming out from various different companies. Do you think
Okay.
that possibly can help a visually impaired person to get a bigger picture of the
Possibly.
data?
See, my knowledge is, you're a tech person. I'm not in the tech field, but I mean, I guess I don't want to say that, but you get what I'm saying, right? I'm not a
Yeah.
product manager as right now, but what I can say is that I can look at, if AI is really making a lot of progress in the way it's going. So what I'm saying is, like, that could be very much possible, because like, obviously, like, when you look at numbers, right? You as a PM, you look at numbers, you look at all this data that's there. You're like, okay, you can make sense out of it by looking at certain numbers. Oh, that doesn't make sense. Why does that not add up, or whatever, right? So I think maybe that may be possible with AI being able to give you a bigger picture, sort of like, okay, help you look at certain numbers, or like maybe there's certain accessibility things that could happen where you have certain markers where it allows you to read those, have the AI trained so it knows which numbers to read. You know what I mean? So I don't have to go looking for all those numbers, like, I don't, within 100 numbers, within 100 piece of data. I know maybe these 10, 15 are very key.
Yeah, no.
And
The reason I'm even saying that, because I think there is a clear need, and I think if someone is listening, they should really look into it, because you started. So I want to change a little bit, spend more time on what you're also doing today, right, with CompleteVision. But
sure.
before we jump on that, So you tried to get into tech, or you were into tech, right? So you were doing your own startup, software testing
Mm-hmm.
accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit more about that. You did talk about the challenge that you faced as a person who is trying to become a product manager. But did
Mm-hmm.
you feel, actually, I have a really interesting question. I don't know how to ask. When you went through the
Okay.
PM training, right? You got the
Mm-hmm.
course, you got a certificate. We're not gonna name the school, right? But
Sure.
what challenge, like you did list it out, but if it makes sense, articulate it, that challenge that you faced. Because I find it like that's not cool, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is talented. And
Mm-hmm.
so what made you stop? Because it seems like you went through that course, everything was good, but you still didn't take that step forward to become a PM. Or you did.
Yeah. So no, I didn't. You're right. I didn't, because the thing is, those analytics really were a barrier for me. I didn't know how to basically compete with another person who cited, who could see those numbers quickly. And I knew I just couldn't see them quickly. So I was like, and what's the point of me even trying this? How am I going to convince a recruiting manager? How am I going to convince a senior product manager or whoever to understand, like, hey, I can do this job. It's just it may take me time. And obviously these companies, they work pretty fast. So
Mhm.
I wonder, I was like, man, why would I even and this is not to sound like, oh my God, like, oh, you could just try harder, or this, that. It's not
Yeah.
to sound like that. It's just, how would I practically do it? And I didn't have an answer to that. Like, how would I practically look at these numbers quickly and be able to come up in a meeting, like, hey, this number doesn't make sense, or that's not, because my background is actually in accounting. When I went to school for accounting and economics in university, you know what I mean? When I went to college. So, and that was one of the main reasons I even left. I was studying to become a CPA. And that was one of the main reasons I sort of stopped becoming a CPA, because I was like, there's just too many numbers. How am I going to decipher, and how am I going to interpret these numbers quickly?
Hmm. No,
So I didn't have an answer for that. I mean, there may be people out in the accessibility world or whatever, maybe working on this problem.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know of, but for me, it was just the problem that was like, numbers are really crucial, and analytics are really crucial. Like, the data points are really crucial.
No, you're right. And I think, but I do have this thing, is like, I'm a little bit on different spectrum. I think
Sure.
you should, how to put this? I want to articulate this correctly. Like, I believe if you don't do the numbers aspect, the analytics, I know a lot of people will be like, what are you talking about? But I think there are a lot of other places where you really need a PM, right? Like
Okay.
if you look at the product life, PDLC, right? It does comes like when you launch something, what's the numbers? How's it performing? I think there could be a better way to solve that problem. Um, but personally speaking, Z, I think this needs to be figured out. This should not be a barrier. Any role.
Right. And the thing is, like, exactly what you're saying. Like, sorry to interrupt you, but to
Yeah.
that point, what I also wanted to say was, see, and again, I don't know how many internal systems you as a PM work with, right? I don't know how
Hmm.
many there are. And knowing if those are accessible or not is another challenge too, right? The numbers is one thing, but if I'm like, my day-to-day task that I have to like go through, it's like, that's not accessible. What how am I going to do my job? Right.
No, and I think that's something all these companies and startups must look into, because I don't believe there should be any kind of barrier for anyone. That it should be hence accessible for people to get into any
Right.
role they want to get into. Like, come on, you know, that's how it
Right.
should
Because
be.
yeah, I agree with you. And what I'm saying is, to see, as obviously, I'm not saying that, okay, as a visually impaired or a blind person, you should be doing product design. That doesn't make sense. I mean, maybe there's someday down the road, maybe somebody able to do that. I don't know. But I wasn't really interested in that. I was more interested in, like,
Mm.
okay, how can I bring this product to life, basically,
So
and
so
oversee this process, right?
so shifting gears a little bit, because I really want to
Hmm.
spend time also on your vision,
Sure.
complete vision. Sorry, complete
Sure.
vision care that we're talking about. Like all of this that we talked about, right? Your journey when you
Hmm.
face a challenge with, when you first time determine, oh shit, my sight is going away, right? Then the visual impairment, and then the challenges with the apps and everything that you're coming across. And now, is that fair to put it, or you can put it yourself, but like you have an amazing board members with Complete Vision Care. You have a great mission. I want you to talk more about the mission, because it's really purpose-driven org that you're now building and moving forward with. Tell me more, and of course, all the audience as well.
Sure. So happy to share that, or to elaborate more on that. Basically, the company is CompleteVision, and the idea basically came from I'm a patient of an eye care clinic, meaning I go to the ophthalmologist regularly once a year. And if some condition comes up or something, then I have to go there more than once a year. But nonetheless, so I saw an experience as a patient, which I felt was really, there were many issues with the patient experience, sitting in an eye doctor's office. And an eye condition that's deteriorating, it's considered it's a chronic eye condition, right? Meaning that it's always getting less and less for some people. Some people it stabilizes, whatever. But nonetheless, it's a chronic condition. Like if somebody has diabetes, somebody has some other heart disease or whatever else they have, right? That is classified as a chronic condition. So when I would go to the doctor's office, I would sit there, and the doctors would every year. First of all, the doctors would only see me for maybe like 5 minutes, and the rest of the time I was getting tested. Like, okay, going to this technician, this machine, that machine. I spent about 3 to 4 hours in the doctor's office going through that, right? And then after that would get done, my eyes, but they would dilate. They put these eye drops that would call dilation drops, I think they're called, but they basically dilate your eyes and make your eyes like really sensitive to the sun and all that. So nonetheless, I would go in there, and the doctor would see me for like 5-10 minutes and tell me the same thing every year, like, hey, we can't really do anything about it. There's no cure. There's nothing for your eye condition. I was like, okay, fine. I would just hear it, and it was just like, for me, it was just like, all right, I already know what to expect. I know what to hear. So, but the fact that the doctor was only there for like 5 to 10 minutes, I always wondered. I'm like, how is this the doctor like only seeing me for like 5 minutes, and like it just came across the doctor didn't really care. So I was like, man, there's got to be some way, because there's different patients that have different eye conditions that are much more severe than mine. Some people possibly can have bleeding. Some people can have all sorts of other issues going on, right? And they see the doctor more often or whatever. But I just felt that was like there was this big gap in the patients and the doctors, in the sense that the doctor didn't really understand the patient too well. And they understand it from like a medical point of view, right? And they treat it from a very medical point of view. It's like, okay, hey, there's something wrong with you. Let's fix it, or whatever's going on. And there was only one doctor that I came across who would take her time. This was in Los Angeles. She would take her time to explain to my mom and just really empathize with my mom. And because I would go to the doctors with my mom, and even empathize with me. It's like, hey, I know this is what's going on. This is tough for you, whatever else she said. But it was such a good experience for me. It just felt like, oh man, that made it easier to go through whatever I was going through. So, I saw that, and I was like, okay, hey, I think as I got older and stuff, I was like, oh, you know what? I think if people, this was my hypothesis, I was like, I think if people were to have a better patient experience going through the eye doctor, it wouldn't make their eyes better. It wouldn't make their eyesight better, possibly, but it could make their life better. And that might sound a little, contradictory, ironic, or whatever, but when I was diagnosed at the age of 15 and a half, or I had just finished my, back in, I don't know if they still do this in high school, but at that time, it was driver's education that I would take to get your driver's license. So at that time, I had just finished it, and then I'd gone to my doctor's office that same day, and my class finished. I got this slip to take to the DMV or whatever. So, I went to the doctor's office, and he basically said, like, hey, clearly in your 20s, you're going to lose your sight completely. And that was it. And I didn't go to the doctor after that. That doctor, I went to different doctors because we moved. But I would just keep on going to the doctors, and they would just tell me the same thing over and over again, over and over again. It just wasn't like there was absolutely no sort of a system in place, or there was no support in place in any way, shape, or form to be like, okay, hey, this is what's going on with you, but here's these different resources, here's the different, or somebody to even talk to go through with whatever you're dealing with, right? There wasn't any system like that that existed, and it was like for a really long time, like it was just a thing of you'd feel like, oh man, this is crappy, this is really crappy, and at that time, my mom would do a lot of the research. I would try to find research in groups and things like that about like, hey, what can we do to help this out? Now it's gotten better. Obviously, the internet is more. Everyone's using it. There's a lot of different resources out there, a lot of social media apps, things like that, so people can find things and reach out to people and stuff like that. It wasn't like that at that time, but even now in today's day and age, like when it comes to the doctor's clinic, right? It's not about the patient. It's about getting the volume of patients through that system, through that clinic. And there's a lot of doctors that care, but it's unfortunate just the way the structure is of that system where doctors have to put their insurance paperwork and other admin work or whatever. And they're sort of, it's not, I'm not holding them responsible. It's just the way the system is right now, where patients are not, patient experience is not a priority. So what we wanted to do with our organization was we wanted to build a system or build a company that would put patient experience at the top and allow patients like myself and others in different chronic eye conditions to feel really cared for, and to do that, and not just be cared for, but to the fact that it just helps improve their quality of life, whether they're getting support from a social point of view, resource point of view. And I say resources, whether it be community resources, whether it's from like a even a psychological point of view, and all these different things. We wanted to approach it from like a very holistic approach to it, rather than it just be like, all right, here's a medical treatment, here's your doctor, and that's it. So in order to do that, what we did was we launched. We basically, I guess in the, I guess what you guys call in tech stealth mode, and
Yeah.
sort of developing in that sense. We're in the phase where basically our company, what we do is we go out there, we look to buy companies that are already existing, meaning eye care companies, eye care practices, private practices that are already in existence. And their vision aligns with ours. Like the doctors care about the patients, the doctors are well known. And we bring them in, and once they're part of our system, we basically assign their different patients that are willing and that want to be part of the system, that are to basically patient navigators, people that they are in touch with the patients regularly, other people that are in touch with the patients regularly, to allow them to feel that support throughout the process of whatever it is, right? Some people, their eyesight stabilizes. For some people, they lose it completely. They lose their eyesight completely. And the amount of challenges and different things that they go through, that we felt that how can we just serve the patient better? And to do that, we were able to put together a team, like a really good team, where we have the cumulative experience of all the team members that we have is, I would say, about close to 150 to 200 years of experience in everything from eye care to healthcare tech to patient experience to mergers and acquisitions, finance, operations, everything like that. Because we felt that it's not just about like, okay, let's go ahead and buy a company, and again, so the way we're thinking about this is not just like, okay, we're just making this company and we're having people being called. We want to build sort of this tech platform, as we progress, and so we want to build this tech platform that connects and builds this ecosystem for everybody in eye care. So think the patient, the doctor, the staff members, the patient navigator, the suppliers, the other vendors involved, right? We wanted to build a whole holistic ecosystem where people can be part of this. And that makes the experience better for everyone in eye care. So that way people really, like, the patient gets the best of it at the end of it.
Nice.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
And I want to ask one thing. In terms of like the ultimate vision is to offer, if I let me know if I'm making a good summarization of this.
Sure.
The ultimate goal is to offer kind of like 360 experience to the patients, but it's patient first. Is
Right.
that fair?
Right.
Right.
That's fair. That's fair. And and one of the reasons why we're even doing that, that may sound like, okay, that's obvious, like, okay, yeah, patient first, because the
Yeah.
patient is the customer in this context, but that's not the case, because what happens currently, and if somebody's familiar with like the investment world and private equity and others,
Mhm.
what happens currently is people end up coming in, investors end up coming in, they buy up these healthcare practices, even in eye care, and what they'll go ahead and do is they'll buy it, they'll make it better from a profit standpoint, revenue standpoint, and then they'll flip it, they'll sell it to another, like a bigger investor, and then they'll try
Yeah.
to do the same thing. But when they improve the quality of the office, the chairs, and how nice the office floor looks, that doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything to the patient.
Yeah.
And we don't want to go down that route.
So you did mention, and this is just for everybody to know, like you and I, we have actually spoken about this as well. There's
Yes.
a vision about the technology play, right, in the
Yes.
future.
Mhm.
And so I just, like just have this news in front of me as well. And then this thing that you're working on. And I think it comes full circle what you're doing, you know.
Mhm.
Like, but when you think of technology play, right? So now things have changed. Like when we spoke about this thing
Mhm.
last year, even let's take it a year or two ago,
Mhm.
we were both like, oh yeah, it has to have a technology play, and you were like, yeah, yeah, that's the whole thing, and I'm like, yeah, but now you have AI where it is today. Then
Mhm.
I don't know if you know, so there was actually a news on May. It was actually earlier this year, May
Okay.
26th, 2023. Neuralink apparently will be approved for study, and I think if I'm not wrong, and if I'm reading it correctly, they're gonna start, begin testing and all that good stuff. But
Mhm.
I'm trying to find, and apparently, when it comes to blindness or
Mhm.
visual impairment, basically, they're saying there is I don't know how to call it. They're saying there's a aspect of which it can almost restore it. I haven't read through as much about it. I know as much as you do at this point, but I want to bring it up
Mhm.
because I just remember reading this news and I
Mhm.
was like, wow. So I guess it's just an open question or perspective at this point. Like, what do you think?
I think that's interesting. I think that's interesting. I think I may have in passing maybe seen a video or listened to a video about that. Um, yeah, at the same time, I guess it's like I wonder, because like how, if the way they're installing it, like where are they exactly putting it? Is it like in your brain? Are they doing surgery to put it in your brain?
Yeah, no, I don't know how they're gonna do that because I actually don't
Right.
know how they're gonna do that. But I know there's a video of I think a monkey or something,
Hmm.
which is he's playing a game or something. I
Right,
saw
right,
it,
right. Okay,
and
okay. I do remember that. Okay, yeah, yeah.
and
They were like
whoever listens
controlling
to
the
me
mind of
and
them. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
whoever is listening at it, like right now, I don't know much about it. I know as much as you do at this point. But
Yeah.
I was really much interested to ask you, like, hey, this thing that Elon Musk is building or creating
Hmm.
will have a huge play, I think, possibly in the vision where you're going, or
That
there's
I think
probably
that's
some.
very much possible. Like, yeah, people are able to restore their eyesight in that way. But then at the end of the day, it's then that sort of puts a question, right? Like, I guess at what cost are you, like, man, then it gets into like privacy of the person's, like, basically their mind, right?
Okay, yeah, like I don't know, like
I
he's not gonna
guess,
go
I
through
guess, I guess
your.
that's how he's thinking about it or something. Like, hey, they got a bunch of blind people, whole blind people army getting up, going somewhere where we
I
want them to
don't
go. I don't know. I don't know. Like,
no,
you can
I don't.
control their
But
mind.
no, no, I think the whole idea is how to
No, no,
increase
I'm just
a.
joking. But you know what I
I don't,
mean?
I
Like,
don't.
obviously, there's a lot of good things in it. It's just have to think
Yeah.
about that. I don't know. I haven't thought about it too deeply, so I don't know.
I haven't either because let's coming back to the complete vision. The only reason I'm asking this on a serious note
Hmm.
was because I truly believe in the vision that you're going forward with. It's not because you're my friend. I know you. I know the challenges that you came across. Let's if I'm taking a structured approach,
Sure.
this guy I met yesterday, and he was like, there's some industries where we are okay with, oh, this is how it works. And you know what? This is how it works. So let's solve a new problem for a new space.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, there are spaces which we think it's okay, right? Like the process that we have today, like, hey, make an appointment with a doctor. I see the doctor. They're like, hey, you need X, Y, Z medicine, blah, 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 whatever.
Hmm.
It's a process we're okay with. And what I like what you're doing, and you're like, no, fuck no. I'm going to go at it. I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to do it the right way. And I will do what's more important is putting the patients first.
Right.
This is to be honest. Yes, there could be other companies doing it, but I think how to put it, there's always this leverage that you will have that they will not have because it's the speed, the velocity around this, also the resource allocation and everything. There are a lot of things that comes into play. Hence why startups are always good. But
Hmm.
I guess what I'm trying to say and trying to summarize is like where you're headed at is I'm just honestly really stoked and excited for where this goes. And
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I mean, yeah, we're definitely excited also, and how we move forward and how we can sort of deliver on what our vision is of complete vision. And it's obviously there are a lot of players in the space. There are people that are doing good work in the
yeah,
sense that they have a lot more. Uh, there's a lot of digital health folks out there that are doing good work, right? But when it comes to from this point of view, like the eye care space, it's what we've seen, what we've come across is there's a lot of bigger players, and they have the capital, they have the resources, they have all these different things. But one thing I think that's important is, we our main focus was we wanted to build it as a patient first company, and me being a patient of eye care, I wanted those kind of people on my team. I wanted that sort of that level of the board members who think like that at that level, right? That are thinking of how can we make this better also. So we're very proud and very, very happy of the team that we have, and the vision that we're excited for moving forward with. And yeah, so that's what it is.
I just have a last question on this one.
Sure.
So where's the party at? When are you coming out of stealth? When this is gonna go, like a splash? I know, I know your answer, but I want to ask because people who are listening, I hope they want to know this answer.
Sure, sure. So for us, I mean, as we're progressing and stuff, we can. It's hard for me to give an exact date. So probably in the next, I'd say probably next few months or so. So as things
Cool.
progress, I mean, you know me, as I'll like keep you up to date. So as things progress, then we'll start sharing that information.
Nice, nice. No, that's cool, man. And I think on this note, we can end it. I took too much of your time, but I think this is
Uh,
really important discussion, right?
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you just bringing me on, willing to like have this conversation, and because I think it's just important just to see that yeah, at the end of the day, it's like everybody has different kinds of problems. Everybody has different kinds of
Hmm.
challenges. It's just like as a PM or as any sort of a tech person, like which problems are really worth solving? And that's a question that people have to ask themselves, and the question that you have to live with every day. Maybe you don't. Maybe you pay attention to it. Maybe you don't. Uh, Maybe somebody pays attention to it. Maybe they don't. And it's just a matter of like, okay, are you okay with the problem that you're solving? Are you okay with
Yeah,
yourself with the problem that you're solving? So that's pretty much it.
yeah. For me, it was like, oh, plus one to what you're saying, and then this add this that. I look at things, and I'm like, for those who don't know, I've done a couple of companies, more than a couple, I believe. And yeah, I've done three companies. The one I don't talk about is the voice assistant one because that only lasted for 4 months. But the point is that I'm trying to say is when I look at problems, I'm like, why is some things being overlooked? Because people are like, oh, this is how it is, this is what it is, and I think product accessibility, it needs to be highlighted as much as it can. be
Mhm.
in hardware, software, and other aspects. Look, I'm just in the tech space, right? But I think in other aspects as well. But I think in the tech space, it should. And then, what I'm really curious about is the Vision Pro that comes out next year by Apple. Like, how will that help you out? I haven't placed an order yet. It's too, I guess,
What is that?
three. You need to drop at $3,000. It's basically spatial computing. So you wear a headset. I don't know how much power does it have, but I saw the demo. They showed, doing their, I think, keynotes.
Mhm.
It's remarkable. And what I've heard from some people, it's really good. So I'm actually curious how does it plays out for accessibility, right? Like,
That
I think
would be
you should be
interesting.
curious. Like, it's something to get your hands on, but you have to drop $3,000 up on that thing. So it's like,
Okay. All right. Thanks. I know you're buying me that gift. Thank you.
well,
Anyway,
they're gonna start high end the same way, like, and then they'll probably
start all
figure
the
out to
product.
reduce.
Yeah.
But I don't
Yeah.
know
Yeah. That's
if Meta is doing that with Oculus as well. I'm just throwing these things because I don't know, but if someone knows, I would love to have them on this podcast, talk to you, have a conversation because
sure.
it needs to be mainstream, and like it should be mainstream conversation.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on that end, man, thank you for coming to the podcast, and
Yeah. Thanks for
hopefully
having
have you
me.
again
It
next
was good.
time.
It's fun.
And talk about your stuff with the splash.
Okay. Sounds good, man. Thanks. You're doing good work.
Thank you, man.